Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Buckle up before I introduce you to our guest. Here's a quote just for this episode. I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. Sir Winston Churchill, our guest today, longtime friend, supporter, Culture Matters. We met many years ago, interestingly enough, in the proximity of where they physically are recording this today. They've been on the show before, episode 254. If you haven't listened to that, get over there after this episode. They've been an entrepreneur basically since almost the womb, having started working in high school. They're definitely a self learner. Give them a book, they'll read it, they'll figure it out, and they'll turn that into something that creates jobs for others. They've got a handful of companies. I should probably introduce them by now. Austin Duchaine, thanks for coming back. AD&C Enterprises, Man It, 1-800 Water Damage, and so much more. Real estate investments. Thanks for coming. Well, I should say, proud that we're both a part of a community, the top contractor school,
Yeah.
and what a gift that is to be in there with you. Thanks for coming back to the Culture Matters podcast and sticking with us for episode 1740.
Wow. Thanks for having me.
And I did you have a word for 2024? Did you have a word for 2024?
I'm sure I did. I got to be a little bit more intentional with that, but I can't remember what it was. But I know at the event, the top contractor event, I'd come up with one. I just got to look back and see what it was.
Like in the circle?
Yeah, in the circle. Yeah.
Um, what about 2025? Do you have something that you're using, or even if that's not a word, like or a mantra necessarily, but a theme, or if you were to verbalize it, something that's pushing you. Because I know you're focused this year,
Yeah.
or there's something different. There was a different spirit about you when we spent time together. Couldn't quite put my finger on it.
Well, I'd say that the mantra is really to focus on people and relationships, both that internal and external. Um, I've been doing a lot of work with my team, and that's really the focus for me this year.
People,
People, yeah.
why?
Well, that's the whole reason we do this. We build a company, obviously, to generate a profit, but if if you're doing it by yourself, you can only go so far. But surrounding yourself with the right people, building that team, and building a business where they can realize their dreams just as you're realizing yours and work alongside you. It takes an incredible amount of trust both ways, for someone to hitch themselves to your vision, to your dreams, and trust that you're going to bring them along, and then they're going to be able to realize their dreams, their goals, their ambitions. Take it very seriously. And the goal is to do more coaching and mentoring of my team and provide those opportunities for them.
Hmm. How do you how do you reflect? What's your process for like look at, like almost like a self audit or looking at your wins versus your losses? Do you have a process that you go through, even if it's not necessarily like codified or written down somewhere?
I Normally I use the mornings for kind of reflection as to what happened the previous day, what my key things that I want to get done for that day are. I would say my what I had worked on in 2024 is to look at not only the numbers as they're important, but like you said, the wins, the losses, reflect on those more, pay attention. Because you can get caught up in that urgency addiction where you're just solving problems all the time. So I've been spending more time diligently looking at numbers, tracking growth, setting targets that can be achieved, and communicating those. So that is reflected not only by me, but my team and my coach, mentor that works with me. We every 2 weeks we really look at the numbers. We build a 1 and 3 year plan. Where are we at? How are we achieving those goals, those targets? And that since January 1, we've been doing that every 2 weeks. So that's a very structured review and assessment.
Urgency addiction.
Yeah.
That's
I
interesting.
yeah. Yeah.
What is that?
What's that? What's urgency addiction?
Yeah, that's good.
Well, my character, my personality is really built for that. And I always thought, all right, you thrive on that, being able to get things done, pivoting when problems happen. But you find yourself not focusing on building a ecosystem around you to not have that urgency. So you get almost a rush when there's a problem. You can stamp something saying, I solved that, I got it done. And it's like any other drug. When you don't have a problem that you're facing that's drag and you have urgency addiction, you find yourself relaxing or not doing what's needed.
Oh, like when you wait, when you're not in that state, you think the
Yeah.
inverse of that. What's the inverse of urgency addiction be? Uh what is that? Like not stagnate, like complacency, or
Complacency,
these
yeah.
two extremes if you're looking at them.
And I think too is looking for problems, so or even almost creating them. Like what can I dig into or what am I going to take on myself that my team is just as capable, more capable. That's what I've had to work on is looking at and taking on problems as being a doer, someone that likes to get things done. It's not always the best use of my time, the best use of the company's time, but allow people to do and do their jobs.
Mm.
So yeah, that's I think urgency addiction is something that I've struggled with, and it's been really having the goals that's helped with that. So that anytime you're constantly working toward achieving your goals, and that's helped me be more goal and target focused.
Mm. You did a speech this year.
I did, yeah.
Who was Austin before that versus after?
You're referring to the top contractor, yeah, school.
Yeah, you really cleaned it up.
Appreciate that. So that is who was Austin before that? Uh, I think that preparing to deliver that, and it's something that I had already been working on. But it was also organizing those thoughts and evaluating myself. All right, I know what needs to be done. And sometimes when you're teaching, you're telling somebody, you do that self-reflection of, am I practicing what I'm preaching? So I I don't know if that answers your before and after question, but that was
Mhm.
kind of a revelation to me doing that.
Like a self-awareness.
Yeah.
Am
And
I
almost
practicing what I'm about to speak on?
right, right. And am I going to commit to what I'm talking about? Because the topic was, getting the year started off right and a framework of doing that. So am I going to not only talk about it, but follow through myself?
Hmm. Um, what do you think so tough about that?
Tough about
Living
what?
by the things that we teach.
I think most people know what needs to be done. That's why it's so easy to talk about them. You read books, if and you listen, and if you like to learn, you know most of the basic principles. So then when you teach them, you're regurgitating what most people already know. It's the execution and the action where you fall off course. Or back to, that urgency addiction, finding yourself off track and running in multiple different directions and not staying focused.
I can tell you too, when I put myself in environments to with the intention to grow, I can always find something that I'm screwing up or not living to the best. Like I'm always gonna find something that I'm not doing good enough.
Yeah. Does that bring up guilt when you?
No, I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
I would think I'm no, I could, maybe I'm wrong. You could see it a different way, but and I'm open to that. I think, you know, what if I stopped finding something wrong? Then who do I think I am?
Mm. Yeah.
Like if I'm putting my, like what when we had Maxwell speak to us, he
Yeah.
talked about he talked about how he was going to meet with John Wooden and how he prepared for that. And like I listened to that advice and I said, well, I'm about to meet my John Wooden. And so I put a book together of questions that I could present to them. Like I was not doing that before that.
Mm.
And then that's more of a positive sounding story. Like, oh, Jay, I didn't do this, and then I went and did this. And then I could think recently I was in at the Alliance of Responsible Citizenship, and I'm thinking, I'm not reading enough. I'm not even trying. I'm not even, I'm not even, I'm not doing anything near what I'm capable of. Like and so what did I do? I said, yeah, like I'm looking at, well, what did I do? Because there was an awareness just like Jeff Rosen talked about how much we scroll
Yeah.
and the addiction that looking at this social media. And I said, I'm going to bring a book everywhere I go. Because what happened was I realized when I listened to audiobooks, I started to develop a habit where I would look at my Instagram while listening to the audiobook because of how, addictive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not as effective as just listening without doing that.
So do you still listen to audio or you're?
Yeah, yeah, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is if I put myself in an environment like we met at the conference, what, 10 years ago?
Mm.
10 years?
That's been, yeah.
I remember being upset about my life at that conference. Yeah, and I remember leaving saying I'm not coming back here until I accomplish something
Yeah.
that I'm proud of. So I want to share that because it's like, maybe the audience hasn't thought of this. It's like, you asked an interesting question, like, is that a good, or do I have guilt? I think you asked, like,
Yeah.
do I have guilt? I hope so. I hope I'm guilty. Guilt
Yeah.
is an important emotion or an important, it leads us with our conscience. Like if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I hope I feel guilty.
Yeah.
If I don't feel guilty, what am I, a narcissist?
Yeah.
Psycho?
Well, I think what you're talking about is, I had never really thought about it that way, but I think there's different people that go to events and take in information and allow it to go in one ear and out the other and not act on it. And that becomes a waste of time, a waste of resources. You're spending time away from your family or business to go to an event. And if you don't walk away and take action on some of the stuff you learn, like what you were talking about with John Maxwell and turning that into action. And it's easy to do because you go and you meet people, especially if you go to the same event over and over again. You meet the same people, you fall into that friend social time, and yeah,
No, that's an interesting thing about the meeting people because we talked about this before we hit record. Like the people that we meet is the relationships oftentimes become these amazing things. But I want to share at least I don't underestimate the value of the content. Like every time I've paid attention, I've learned something about myself or the world. I felt like I've it's forced me to look at myself. What am I doing wrong? What am I not doing? And I get like intense aggressive energy. And I think that's good.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's great too. I think, turning that into something where you're self-reflecting and you turn it into action. Like I see this problem within myself, so I'm going to work to fix it or to grow and get better. Yeah.
Somebody at the event asked me, what are you looking to get at? Or what's next for you? And I said, I'm a student. Like I need to be a student again.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't have it all figured out. I don't know. Just if 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 my word for 2025 is intensity.
Yeah.
Like, how can we take things up to the next level? How can we evolve the show? How can we I share more of myself on the show, for example. Right. There's some right, we know each other 10 years. Like, I should be able to have a conversation with Austin on the podcast. Like,
Yeah.
there's interviews, conversations. Maybe I'll invite some people on um that are my enemies, and I'll just argue with them for 2 hours, just fight and just leave it, recording the whole time, screaming matches.
Well, I could sense that in you, the intensity or true. I believe you're living up to your word of the year. So
You think so?
I do. Yeah.
What do you think I could do better?
But don't put me on the spot like that.
Well, maybe
Well,
that's, yeah,
right,
there you go.
I would say more of what you listed because I enjoy more about yourself, more openness. I mean, you're doing it. I mean, you addressed it, but that more of that because that is, who is Jay? And because you do a great job, as long as I've known you, of listening and being very intentional and asking questions and connecting on that way. I want to know all about you. Very focused, but there's a lot to you and sharing that having the two-way street engage.
Well, thanks. I am gonna I'm trying, even in this episode, right? Show that I'm trying to act these lessons out. It's
Yeah,
like, how can we make culture better, matter more, share more with the audience of what they need to learn and listen, you know? Um, what's been one of your big lessons for 2025 even so far this year? I mean, in some sense, the year's already over.
yeah, that I believe that.
And I
And
mean that behaviorally, like,
mhm,
right, it's like, and I would like your thoughts on this, like behaviorally, we're cemented in our habits, we're cemented in our who we are, right? What we know, what we think we know, who we hang out with, who we work with. We're cemented in that. So we're in March, like the year's already over, meaning someone could easily rationalize all year round. Like from now on, oh, I'll do that next year,
yeah.
or I'll start tomorrow, and it never comes. So, yeah, I guess there was a couple questions in there. One was like, what have you learned already this year? And the second would be what your thoughts were on this whole idea of the year. The year's already over.
I think, or not I think, it's because it's a lesson I learned recently. And honestly, if I'm truly self-critical, I should have learned it over and over and over again. But I'm committed to not repeat the same mistake. It comes with when you hire employees and you bring them on and you care about them, you can make excuses to keep them on longer than they should. So my commitment is, and what I've learned here recently, like I'm talking in the past week, is that if you do everything you can for an employee to give them the opportunities to succeed. Allowing them to continue in your business is a disservice to them and yourself and the people around you. I recently let somebody go, and as soon as he's out the door, you start uncovering things that have been allowed to persist and really treading water within the company. And I knew what was going on. The people around us damaging to the culture. Very it had immediate positive impacts when I let him go to the culture because, but you hear the things. I can't believe you let him stick around that long. So I think what I'd heard a long time ago, and I can't remember who said it, Gary Vaynerchuk, or everybody puts so much into their ability to hire the right people that you don't know somebody until you really know them, till they're there in your business. So being a little bit quicker to hire, but faster to let somebody go if they're not, if they if
That's a great point. I think we should alliterate on that a little. It's also people change and we change whether we realize it or not, because the conditions change.
yeah, that's
Like it,
I never heard it articulated that way, but that's absolutely spot on.
right? Because people can change. They're like if things happen in someone's life, let's say they have a baby and they lose the baby,
Yeah.
like that's not the same person.
No, no.
What about somebody that, goes through you know, any type of interpersonal relationship issue, like, 50% of the population's divorced,
Yeah.
right? So I could think, oh, this person, they stink. Well, 6 months ago, they were great, but they changed.
Yeah.
The circumstance of their life changed. Or at the same time, you have a business. Uh, it I perceive that my person, this is where I look at myself a lot and think, man, I'm a crappy leader. Like, like I I could look at the person and think I could project on them ev things that I'm not even, quite haven't I haven't caught up yet to the
Yeah.
criticism that I'm not listening to. That would be a bit of a I personally absolutely am that. Like that has happened many times. I have not caught, I'll give you, because all the time, I just had an epiphany today. Somebody that I have to call and apologize to because I was a dick. Totally didn't even realize it. That was 2 months ago. So my awareness hasn't caught up to my critic. What do
Mm.
you think of that? Like that's another thing to think about.
Uh,
My
uh,
awareness personally it took 60, it's almost like I'm on a lag.
my awareness hasn't caught up to my critic. So,
I got, and I really mean this. Like I have to call. I texted them. I texted them. And I was
mhm,
aware like a week or two ago, but then I was like, oh, and then I started coming up with reasons why I shouldn't reach out
right. Yeah.
because I'm weak.
But that,
I'm being a little, so one of the feedback I've gotten from advisors that I have is like, I'll beat myself up. Like,
mm,
I'm saying I'm weak on a podcast. This is going to live forever on the internet. Jenna's going to kill me, right? But it's like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But that is what I would think. And there is a level of, hey, this is the truth. I realize. So yes, my quote there was, or the thought is, it took me 2 months for me to catch up to my critic.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. People change. I change, we change, the conditions change. What are your thoughts?
I'll take it a step further and tying it to business, the position changes, which I guess that would be the environment changing. So, and that's what I've struggled with too, is you hire somebody for a position, and if they're not growing with that position, if your company and you are in a upward trajectory and they're not growing with that, then that can outpace them. And then so that's everything changes.
the actual position can outpace the person.
Right, right. Yeah. So you, for instance, yeah, hire a project manager, let's say, and you're taking on larger projects, you're shifting the way you're doing business, and you're more demanding of what a project manager is. What I demand of a project manager today, and what the environment, the litigious nature of projects, the documentation that's needed. It's way different than when I first started a drywall business, when I first hired a project manager, I would say, because I did in the beginning, I did it myself, but first hire project manager, the demands of that position were different.
And so now the demands have changed,
Yeah.
and then um, more is expected.
More is expected, yeah. Yeah. And so you give the person opportunity to grow with that position. Let's say you introduce a new technology or a new way of doing things, or you learn a lesson because of something that happened on a project. This is the new way we're doing things. Again, we're taking on larger projects, larger geographic regions, so the demands are different.
You bring up another, or there's another point that, or thought that comes to mind on that point is, let's say now we're going to hire people to, like, more people are needed.
Hmm.
Someone, there's a difference between conceptualizing an activity. There's like, and even the ability to get it done. You talked about, the spirit of urgency addiction. Like, hey, I can get this done or get that done. Knowing, like conceptualizing, knowing, understanding, being responsible enough to execute. You have character, you have education, you have certain, experience. At some point, you might just need more people too. The person that could know and do and execute, it doesn't necessarily mean that they could lead two more people on their team, right?
Yeah.
We have individual capacity to abstract and act. Then there's also communicate abstraction, like thinking, like listen, speak, inform. There's a tension between me and then there's me and three other people just because I'm the expert. I'm the culture guy.
Yeah.
That it doesn't mean that I'm also capable of this as well over
No,
here.
no,
And that
no.
adds another element of how the heck do we, and that's where, like, okay, do we even have an org chart? Oh, we do. But, does it have meaning? What does it mean?
And when your business is growing and you talk just like you said, I know how to do this, but I don't really know how to do this, but we need that. Like as you grow HR, different levels of accounting people, things that but you're tasked with hiring those people when you don't know. You just know, yes, I need that, but I don't know what it takes to do that job. I got to learn at least the working knowledge so that, and you take a stab at hopefully you're hiring the right person, but you never had that position before because we're constantly adding new positions as we grow and we have more employees and adding middle management. Um, but you got to raise your leadership ability because now you're managing people that are managing people, which is totally different than managing a doer. And
Well, oh, and ooh, that's good. Imagine I'm managing people that are managing people, and I'm someone that can't keep a secret.
yeah,
How about
yeah,
that? Something very simple.
yeah,
Very simple. I'm managing people that are managing people that are managing people, and I can't keep a secret. Meaning I don't have integrity.
right, yeah,
I'm not an integrated person.
yeah.
My thoughts and this is fun, but I have no idea we're going to talk about this.
That's all.
It's in the spirit of like trying to be more, right. You said, Jay, be more Jay. Like my thoughts, my words, and my actions are not integrated.
Yeah,
So just imagine I'm leading people who are leading people who are leading people, and I lack integrity.
culture, man. That does that damage culture when somebody cannot be trusted? And
It sounds like a funny, like a stupid question. There's no stupid question. No, I don't. There's no stupid question.
right, right.
That that that's uh
It came out, but you get what I'm saying because, people are they're social people and, but you got to have some level of integrity and the water cooler talk, not that there's a whole lot of water coolers when we're all working all over the place, but yeah,
well, people. Okay, that's a really deep question, actually. Like spirit, like culture wise, because there are different societies governed differently.
yeah.
Um, we have the look at our society. We have freedom of speech. We have the freedom to speak up. It's one of our inalienable rights to be able to say what we think. And part of the purpose of that is to protect the sovereignty of the individual against the tyranny of the construct. Because the construct can fall out of alignment with the best interest of the individual.
Mm,
Lord Abington, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So for example, in a business, it it can grow, even if it's not that big, it can grow to such a point where our people, we can't hear them.
mm,
I have absolutely not listened to people.
mhm.
That's why I was just saying, I just caught up to one of my critics from 60 days ago. So it can feel like a big organization, even though it's tiny,
Yeah.
based on our ears and our heart and our spirit. I'm going to go back to the speech thing. We have this inalienable right to the ability to speak because our words can protect us against tyranny. Tyranny comes in many forms. But I can have the ability to speak. Like everyone could say what they think and feel, but I could be afraid too. So I'm omitting. So the question, like you'll see the if the people at the lowest level of the company are talking amongst each other, like whispering each other's ears, it might be a sign that we've not listened. Like something's broken. If the king or the queen is creating that, they are on the road to hell, which is paved with good intentions.
Wow. Yeah.
They're on the way to they're creating their own coup. They're creating an environment that they're going to get cooed out because nobody wants to work for a tyrant. Chimpanzees will literally come together and they will go against the primate that's like dominant and uses power and force and violence, and they'll rip that person apart eventually because nobody wants to be working in an environment where they don't have thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And we can create that environment as people in positions of authority, influence, and power without even realizing it. And one of the ways to do it would be to lack integrity. And something that is a sign of lacking integrity would be to not be able to keep, have A to B conversations.
Right. Right.
A
Yeah.
to D, like, A to C about B and B with D about A. Like that breaks down trust. That's a really long answer, but it's kind of the short answer really, because I could go on, I think, too long on that.
At some point I'd like to go on with it because it's super interesting to me. Because so if I'm getting what you're saying, right? Ultimately it leads to leadership. If people are not keeping that A to B and it's all over the place, well then there's something lacking in the culture. They're not being heard, nobody's listening to them, and then it starts to become pervasive, is what we're saying.
Also though, it could be a consequence of the. I just haven't done a good enough job for whatever reason clarifying what we're doing and why. People don't know. They don't know what the bigger picture is, and or maybe I'm waiting to share it because I'm too insecure to share it. I'm not sure myself, or so like, or like let's say there's a lot of things happening with the business. There's a
So
lot of change, but the
I'd like to
change
touch
isn't
on
being communicated.
that.
That
So I'd like to
creates
touch on, right.
scariness.
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to lose this. I'd like to touch on that because that's one thing that in being in proximity to you and and thinking about or the culture aspect of sharing and communicating the vision and where we're going, that has been a starting, I would say I really became intentional that third quarter of last year and really focusing on that going forward. You know, you communicated with your inner circle, your leadership team, which that was even a growth for me to just even communicate it there, but that it can't stop there. And that has been intentional and or having to be intentional with that because it's not in my nature, right? Where if I'm working, I'm expecting this person's working just as hard as me. We're all going this way, but where do they know where we're going? Do they know why we're going there? Do they know what the ultimate benefit to everybody is for doing this work? So, and communicating that and having those one-on-one A to B conversations about it.
Keep in mind, when we're small, most of our communication is with our, if we have a good culture, it's because we have it with our customers.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, think, and I'm proud, deeply proud of the relationship we have with our customers, our client partners. I mean, it's
Yeah.
everything. As we grow and we have employees, many that you haven't met yet. I mean, without them, this show doesn't happen, and others. As we grow, I've got to get just as good at communicating with them as I am with our customers.
Hmm.
Now, the other way around, you can have terrible communication with your customers and overly communicate with your people, and now you just have a cult.
Yeah. Yeah. And you
Like
start,
that's the antithesis of what I'm talking about that I see in businesses all the time too, where they go one way where it's only everything in a vacuum and they stop listening to their customers. And they don't have a good culture. They have something we don't they have an ideology essentially. It'd be the
right.
distinction between, I would argue, a culture and an ideology is one, and yeah, that would be like a distinction. It becomes like it's everything in a vacuum, and it's like we don't,
It just sounds like it's one more of those things that you have to pay attention to both sides because if you go too far one, you might go a little bit or but you're not going to see
yes.
growth, you're not going to see anything great because you can't have one without the other.
There's this great book here in the library here on this topic. Oh wait, it should be right here. Oh, here it is. This is a famous book. This is in my office. The library's downstairs, but right here, this book is a famous. For anyone not watching on YouTube, we have a video on YouTube, but I'm holding up on my YouTube channel my name, "The Open Society and Its Enemies." It's a famous book from the 20th century on like culture, history, philosophy. It's about ultimately freedom of thought and like freedom. And I'll just read the uh what is this? Yeah, no, and that's a little abstract. I'm trying to find there. Yeah, well, the Open Society and Its Enemies is one of the most influential books of all time, hailed by Bertrand Russell as a vigorous and profound defense of democracy. But at like a deeply human level, it's about the open society. Like, how do you have a society that self-corrects? Think of like a business that innovates.
Hmm.
It constantly renews itself. It's think about this, right? It's messy when people get to say what they think. It's messy. Like, who do we listen to and for how long? And should everyone have an opinion? And then what do we do with that? And how do we take and for example, you mentioned the water cooler. Like, what if we hire some people that are just plain evil?
Yeah.
4% of the population is supposed to be psychopath, apparently. So that's like 4%. 4% of 300 million is 12 million.
Yeah.
Are there 12 million bad employees running around?
Oh, yeah.
No, so
And
but
and
this
they can change. They can
These
go
are
for
deep.
good.
These are deep questions. Is like the
Yeah.
point. Like there's books about history and philosophy that challenge these questions of like what. And the reason I went into this tangent about open society, yes, people can change. Sorry, I just fell up to the. Is like I look at it. Is it an open culture? Or is it closed? Or now it's not just binary like that, open or closed. It's somewhere in the middle. But you know when it's closed.
Mm.
You know, we've been in those relationships where it's closed. We've been in those, oh, what happened to the culture? It's like it's gone. What happened? But I think when we stop fighting for it, if we're the leadership and we've stopped fighting for the culture, we're the problem. That would be my.
Gotta fight for the culture.
It's like George Washington. I want to stay president forever. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know what you were going to say something. I went off on this
No,
Sermon on the
it's good
Mount
stuff.
over
I can't
here.
remember exactly what I was going to say before, but yeah, no.
Oh, you said the people, the conditions change, or the
Yeah.
environment changes, or the.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. The environment. So when you hire someone, or it just like you said, all those things can change. And maintaining that, doing what you can to help people grow and grow with you. But yeah, when it doesn't work out, you got to also have those hard conversations too.
Yeah, well, what's worked for you to be able to have it?
Well, let me start with when it's hard for me to have it is when I know that I didn't give that person the opportunity or the coaching. Then because I have a very strong feeling of responsibility not only for them but their family. So if I don't have that dialogue through the way, my what I want is if I have to sit somebody down and let them go, they already know it's coming. They're already very much aware. They were given that opportunity. So it's very difficult for me when I got to fire somebody and I didn't do that. Sometimes you still have to do it, but when I didn't go through those steps. But
Hmm.
having the what also makes it easy is when you have those conversations, you have that coaching, but then you have set your company up and your processes to be able to track and show them also, right? Like so where things went wrong on a job in my world in construction, or how they went over on materials. Why did they go over materials? Was it an issue with a budget, or did they over order or under, like why did things happen, and give the opportunity to correct it. And when you and track those things and document in notes, that is something that's not second nature to me, but you know writing down as these things happen so that you're not then just when you have to sit somebody down, you're not just telling them or going over feelings. You can represent the facts so that they understand and they walk away knowing that it's just not a fit, right? And you had to do what you had to do.
Hmm.
Because I think a lot of people are unaware too. They feel like they're doing a good job. Some people are fully aware. They know I'm just treading water. But some people are blindly unaware. If you're not helping them and coaching them and allowing them to see, because if you're not tracking numbers or having those weekly, monthly meetings where everybody knows where a job's at or the company's at, they don't know if they're doing a good job or not. So that's the other part of it. They don't even know. They feel like they're working hard, or they are working hard, but they don't know how well they're doing.
Hmm. How have you built strong relations with your customers? I know you have.
So paramount is doing what you say you're going to do. And I mean that is the number one to build that trust, that um and the other thing that uh especially for the first number of years in business, being that guy that they can rely on, because a lot of my business has been built helping restoration companies or responding quickly to even general contractors that need help. Um, knowing that they can get a hold of me, that I'll respond quickly. I won't say, "Oh, I'll get you a price in 2 weeks, 2 months," being effective there and doing what I said I'm gonna do.
Something else I want your thoughts are on this is that I think employees can outgrow employers too.
Absolutely.
Um, and I think that's an elephant in the room that isn't talked about enough that should be because I think it can create empathy. Like what separates us from our employees, a big part of it really is that we just decided to take on the risk and haven't quit.
Hmm.
You mentioned something earlier that was it led me to this. It was like you basically implicitly was like damned if you do, damned if you don't. You said, we're looking to hire people and hire things that we don't necessarily know enough to know what we're hiring. That's part of the being an entrepreneur is taking those risks.
Hmm.
I'm making this up, but I think that great like leaders, they're right 70% of the time with people, but they 30%, like they take the risk. They hire. You might be right 70% of the time. You're wrong 30%, but
Hmm.
you take the risk, right? Now the
Yeah.
conversation we've predominantly been having today is like around letting people go. Now let's think about this. That 30% where we're wrong, whether conditions change or we were wrong at the gate, whatever that is, the time lapse, the longer we wait, the worse the problem gets, the shorter, the less the problem. But then it
Yeah.
becomes a question of are we giving them enough time? I actually think that's a psychological BS. And it's probably because we're afraid to do it or we don't know how to do it.
I agree. I
There's
agree.
no right
Because,
time. It's like you're in a lying relationship. Like you
yeah.
have to address the problem. I'm totally going left field though. I was actually trying to make a point about something else, which was I was like, that was just part of it. It was like, what happened? What was I saying? Because that was only one part of it. It was like 70. The employees,
Yeah.
empathy.
Oh, the
They
outgrowing
can
it.
outgrow us. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Because they're people.
Hmm.
Hello. Like
Yeah.
at one point, we were employees of somebody,
Yeah.
even if you were 10,
Right.
even though you started when you were like a teenager.
And
So I was an employee of someone. I had a job once,
yeah.
and we can outgrow people. Outgrow or even maybe I didn't, and I just like it could be looked at either way. But I think that can create an awareness that our people outgrow us too.
Yeah.
Our
Well,
clients can outgrow us. Our people can outgrow us. Our
when
vendors
I,
can outgrow us. Like,
when I converse with other business owners, often we talk about that, and it's a fear for a lot of people to have one of their employees outgrow them and say, "Oh, you can do it, so I can do it, so I'm going to do it too," and start their own business. And I've never really had that fear, but I can understand it because that can happen, right?
oh my God. And think about this. It's actually a very high likelihood if we're literally paying, if I'm not treating my employee right
Hmm.
and I'm paying them and they're watching me, all my blind spots, all
Yeah.
my good spots, then of course they're going to kick my ass.
Hmm.
They figured out everything about me that sucks, and they also learned all the great stuff. They just don't appreciate the great stuff because I'm a dick.
Mm. Yep.
I mean, that's just psychology.
Yeah.
Like I literally paid them to learn all my best parts, but because of my worst parts that I don't even know about, they don't even want to give me the credit. I that psychologically would be very normal. Um, so I personally don't want to. I would want to support my employees. I think it's better culturally to like, you know, don't kill your kids, basically.
Mm.
And I've interviewed so many hundreds of entrepreneurs. The one thing I would say the best ones, like human wise, their personality, they like they welcome somebody, hey, you're gonna go start your thing. Good. Like they try to work through that because it really hurts. It really hurts. It definitely would feel like a betrayal, but also it make me feel very insecure. Like, I'm a loser. I'm not good enough, or I'd be really upset. Like, hey, maybe this person, maybe they hurt me. Maybe, maybe they got to the point where they actually want to hurt me
Yeah.
because that
Then
could
you got
happen too.
that introspective is that something that was I not a good enough leader? Just like you said, do they hate my guts because of the way that I am? What, yeah. Try to look at it internally to see why that happened. And sometimes it's just they're outgrowing you and they were always meant to start their own thing.
I have a theory that this is actually a part of human nature, and it's how the system corrects itself. Because when we don't take care of ourselves, cancer develops.
Hmm.
What better entrepreneurial spirit creator is there than a close relationship that doesn't work out, right? We've like you have a close. It's like that's in the Bible, you know. You know, Lucifer is like, hey, hey, best
Gonna,
angel,
gonna do my own thing.
No, I think it's no, but I think what better way? Because what better way to give some edge to somebody
Yeah.
than it's like the system. I'm totally going on a quest right now. There's no end here.
Yeah.
I'm following this thought all the way. But
Well, I
what
love
do
that what you
you
said about it's that taking the risk that makes you an entrepreneur and business owner. And it's really that's the indicator. So somebody can say, I think I can do that, but are they willing to risk it every single day? And great employees come back that realize they weren't built for taking those risks. You know,
Ooh. Well, the question becomes, are you the type, whoever is listening to this, for the three people that are still, that are Mary, Bob, and Kat, are you still listening? No, that's me being overly critical. For, for our listeners, I guess that would be a poll I'd want to ask the listeners at this point. How many of you would accept, right? Would let somebody come back to your country that decided to leave? Is this open border? Not like open borders, like borders don't matter. What I mean is this like an open society where they can, you know, take their test, come back, or is it like a country where if they leave, they can never come back?
but does it have to be so black and white and binary like that? Or could it
I don't know.
be,
What do you
right?
think?
So my belief, it has to do with how they exit, right? So, and it's the way that I left my first employer. It was we sat down, and I said, "Look, I've always wanted to have my own business. I really thoroughly appreciate what you've taught me. I'm going to do this. And if we can have a good relationship, I'll help you on your jobs as a subcontractor. I will not, he had a handful of customers that were his go-to customers. I'll respect that. I'll never talk to them. And you can count on me to help you on jobs when you need help. So, and I didn't think about it that way, but I thought about it after that if that's the way someone's going to leave me, then they'd be welcome back, right? They left in an ethical fashion because someone goes and starts their own business or goes and maybe goes to another company. One of my key employees, an estimator, he left because we didn't have the right culture for him. I wasn't in a position to be able to really work with him and teach him. And so he went somewhere else, learned, came back, and is a rock star employee. So that's huge benefit. If you pigeonhole yourself and you say, if they leave, I'm never going to welcome somebody back, and that is your clear cut thing, I believe you're doing yourself and your company and that person a disservice. because
I guess
they can learn other things and bring them back to you.
so. I'll play the devil's advocate then for the other side of it is if we're the type to let the inverse, like the opposite of that, let anybody back no matter what, somebody that keeps stealing and coming into your house and taking all your stuff, eventually you'd be left with nothing.
Right, right.
So I guess also don't let people take advantage of you.
Yeah, right. That's
But the question becomes, what's the in between? Because there's something about also holding a grudge or something,
yeah. Well,
or resentment, the poison. There's it's a poisonous. There's a quote about it. It's like I don't know. I can't. I can't remember. But it's like there's a poison or a vengeful thoughts. There's two deaths.
well, don't exactly know the quote,
I have
but
no idea. Neither do I. I failed miserably at this thought that I was trying to follow there.
but if someone, I can understand and empathize with the idea of you're going to leave me, so I'm going to cut you off. I get it, because I trained you, I brought you up, however you think about it, and then you're going to leave. But is that the most constructive way? One, I think that'll kind of scorn you from looking at other employees because there's a lot of people that go out of business because they don't trust people. And one of the ways people can disappoint you is leaving. And so if you dwell on that and oh, that person hurt me and I'm going to get them back, or if they ever need their job again, you think of the quote?
No, I'm really upset because I just realized that my works. You're like quoting Kierkegaard right now. And I'm reading this new book. It's not a new book. It's what I've never finished it. I've been reading it for years, and I'm still only on page 230 because I'll pick it up, I'll read a couple pages, I'll put it down, I'll lose it. Like right now, it's downstairs. It's called Works of Love, and one of the by Soren Kierkegaard, who's a he was a Danish. They called him the Socrates of Christendom. He was a he's like a theologian's theologian. He has this book, like a lot of pastors study him. And he has this book about love. And one of the chapters was love.
Hold on, was he in the introduction to Nietzsche? I think I heard that name before.
I
During
talk about him a lot.
yeah,
I'm quite fanciful of him. I don't think Nietzsche ever read Kierkegaard,
no,
like
no,
he never passed the work on.
the Peterson University. I thought that's where I might have heard
Oh,
him when
you
he
you
referenced
probably
him.
did if you're in that course, right? You're taking that course on Peterson.
Yeah, yeah. Not as diligent as I want to be. I got to keep going, but
We got to
I have
talk about
quite a
that
bit of
too
it.
in closing.
Yeah,
We should shout it out. So
yeah,
yes, you probably heard of him in there
yeah.
because
Okay, I
Dr.
just
Peterson
recognize
is
the
a
name.
big student of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Dr. Peterson is a big student of Soren Kierkegaard. He was a famous existential philosopher, basically studying existence and our nature. But he was a theologian. Like he read the Bible unbelievably. The guy he wrote 24 6 books, 4 books in like in a decade or so, like a very short period of time. Like he published anyway, he's a prolific writer, prolific thinker. And this book, man, it's a chapter about how love uh can never be deceived. Because love can never be deceived, even if it is like even if a deceiver deceives the lover,
Mm-hmm.
not lover like sensuous love or like a marriage or something, like to like a lover, like divine love, like
Mm.
unconditional, love your enemy, like that love. The precondition to that is it's like believing in their potential, in their capacity. It's you can't deceive my choice to love
Mm.
you. Like yes, the deceiver can lie, like they can deceive, they can defraud, but whatever they do is not that doesn't impact you or me, our choice to choose that
Yeah.
to live in that way. It was like, and it's he just goes on and on, you know, proving that thought. Like
Yeah.
it can't ever be deceived. It was, but anyway, I was going to read the excerpt because my I'm not Kierkegaard, and but I left the book downstairs. But for anybody that's listening, that's interested in the idea of kind of the theme, some of the theme of what we're talking about is I've been deeply influenced by his work. This it's like a it's another I don't know how to explain it. There's a degree of responsibility, but it goes beyond that. And I think thinking about these things can help answer some of these tough questions that business owners that we go through. How do we actually approach those scenarios? Austin, wow, I look forward to part three.
Yeah.
Next time you come on, let's not let it. I think the last time was episode 254, so we're damn well about around eight when this will be out, 850 range. So let's not wait 600
Let's get more like in the
episodes.
200 range. We'll shoot for that.
Yeah, let's not wait so long. But
Yeah.
what do you think the audience should do, with this? What's our next? How do we end this?
Well, I think like you said, a shout out to that Peterson University. That's great. Yeah, it and just being a student, and that's a piece of it, and learning and taking in the information, and hopefully, or I know that I get a lot of information and useful wisdom from listening to your interchanges with people on your podcast. So just being a
Thanks.
student. Yeah.
Do on the Peterson Academy, what's been your experience? What is that to you? And what would you say to our listeners that don't know what we're talking about right now?
So uh, I am just starting. I'm not quite as far along as you are, but uh, Jordan Peterson has his online university, which is a collection of scholars. And the idea, you correct me if I'm wrong, is not to have it chained by the educational system to where they can teach uh, the way that they want to teach and the subjects that should be taught. And it's just a wealth of information from people that are truly experts in that field.
Hmm.
So, and it's an easy format, hour or so videos, and you can do it on demand. And I suggest like taking the time to do the quizzes. It allows you to think about it and not necessarily critique how much you paid attention, but it gives you a second time to think about, what was said.
Yeah, I agree. I've gotten so much from that process, and it's good accountability we're talking about it because I've not logged in. Um, I've fallen behind in my studies. It's so easy to fall behind. That's one thing I would say. It's so easy to fall behind. It's so easy to get busy. It's so easy to not prioritize or, I'm reading this or doing this, and it's good accountability for you to bring it up and like, oh yeah, I got to get in there because I've fallen behind. And they keep releasing courses, so that's a motivation to, hey, I want to finish, but if I'm not studying and taking the courses faster than they release them, I will not finish. That's a good
Yeah.
motivation. I got just as an aside, I did meet some of the professors in person at
Oh yeah.
in London. Yeah, shout out to Derek Cooper. Uh, he teaches the business course, and Dr. Yao, his COO. I ran into Dr. Farrell, who does the boy crisis. Dr. Orr, if you've seen him in there, he does a bunch of philosophy courses. Um,
How was that?
Jonathan Pageau was there. I got to see him. Yeah, it was awesome. It was nice to say hi to them. And um, uh, man, I want to make sure I honor everybody. Well, Rob Henderson, his great book called Troubled. I got to say hi to him. A lot of the people that teach in there. There's a couple that I think they're going to come out with some courses. They've been taught that I got to bump into. Um, so it was awesome. But
What did you attend where you got to meet these people?
the ARC,
Oh,
Alliance of Responsible Citizenship. Many of the
okay.
professors were there in London at the annual conference, and it was really cool to be able to tell them, "Hey, I'm taking your course." Um, you know, Pete Kaufman was there, political theory. I mean, a lot of them were there, and it was pretty cool to be able to meet them and shake their hand and tell them, thank you. And they were surprised and like, that's exciting. Hey, have you bumped into students and so on? So, a lot more to come. But anyone that's not on the Peterson Academy, I would challenge you to go to that and enroll and get in there. It's a nominal fee for every week.
Thanks
There's a
for
new
what you do, I
course.
think.
There's close to 40 courses in there. They're 8 to 9 hours. You're taking the Nietzsche one right now, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's deep.
It's a profound, yeah, it's on Beyond Good and Evil, one of the most, it's a prolific 19th century book from one of the most influential thinkers of the last 300 years. I mean, hundreds of years. So, Austin, you're the man. Anyone listening to this, go listen to episode 254 on the Culture Matters podcast. Very different conversation. Get to know Austin on a personal level and his life, business. And Austin, where can people follow you?
Austin Duchaine on any social media platform. So make it easy.
Share this with a friend that cares about leadership and culture. And we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.